Hey guys, how y'all doing, man? Welcome to another episode of the Get Busy podcast. As you can see, my partner Izzy isn't here. It's just me. I'm solo dolo today. Um, I wanted to get on tonight, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about. I didn't want to do a long recording, but I wanted to, find something encouraging for the people out there. Thank you all for continuing to support us and tune in and give us some feedback and all that good stuff. We love you all very much. Izzy loves you guys, and we'll be back together on the next episode. Hopefully, if our schedules and life permits. But so I was sitting here, I was thinking about what is it that I want to talk about, and so as I have my laptop open now, I got my doing my single camera and my desktop setup right now. So this is a little bit different. But my son Joel, he came and walked into the studio. Um, and he has a game tomorrow, his soccer game tomorrow. He was feeling, a little bit nervous about it. And we've talked about this before. And so it's kind of a, ongoing thing, just helping him through, think through some of his feelings and, think through what the how to assign a meaning to what he feels, what he goes through. And so um, we had this really good conversation. And so, it's something that he's been, again, it's been a reoccurring thing. And so this time, what I decided to do, I wanted to take him to the word. So what I've been doing with my older two kids, um, we've done a couple of Bible studies together. And so typically how I format it is something that I'm learning. So this is how I like to read the Bible, or how I like to study the Bible. I'm currently doing a 1 year Bible reading plan through the YouVision app. I'm actually like maybe 2 or 3 weeks, about 3 weeks behind on that one. I've been doing some other reading, and so what I'll do is I find a good YouTube video, whether it's a sermon, it could be my church or somebody else's, or just a really good talk that somebody else gives. And if I like it, I'll go back a second time and I'll take notes on it. So I'll have the YouTube videos, pause, play, type down the scriptures. I put everything in my Google Docs. And so I have all my notes. And so there's one channel, and I'll put a link in the description of a guy I found. His channel is called Do Season Carl, and it's all animated, but he gives some really, really good lessons. And so this one I came across was on God and neuroplasticity. And so if you're like me, you've never heard that term before. So neuroplasticity is basically, it's a science that talks about how whenever we think about a thought, it forms a pathway in our brain. And so, if you think about being hungry, or you think about a memory of somebody that you met, or a joke that's funny, every thought that you have, it just like forms this like squiggly line, kind of like a highway in your brain. And so, how it works is every time you think about the same thought, it widens that same neural pathway. And so basically, he was talking about how the Bible already confirmed what science is just now catching up with, which something I find really cool is when I think God allows us to discover new things about nature, about the human body, about the galaxy. God already knows everything, but we try to we discover things. We have the Albert Einsteins of the world, all these scientists or whatever, and a lot of these people think they're smarter than God. Not all of them, but some of them do. And so he was comparing that study of neuroplasticity to what the Bible was already saying. So, and so the cool thing is, I study this on my own because it's something that I've been struggling with personally. Um, I took this test. Sometimes I don't know if you've ever taken like a personality test or a spiritual gift test. So my church, I go to Victory Church in Norcross, Georgia. Shout out to Victory. Whenever you enter church leadership at Victory, what they do is they have you take these assessments. And so one of them is a conflict profile, the other one is about emotional intelligence, another one is about spiritual gifts, another one is the what's called the DISC assessment, which a lot of people are kind of familiar with. Basically, just show the DISC assessment shows your personality type, and your strengths and weaknesses for any type of personality. So it's not like a right or wrong answer. It just really just shows you who you are just based on natural human traits, right? And so I've taken all those tests. And so, I'm in this season now where, I've been asking God, what is it? What is your plan? What is your calling in my life right now? So previously I was working for a property management company, fixing up houses, getting them ready to rent out, or Airbnbs to get those ready to rent out. And, learning a lot of stuff because I had a little bit of prior experience. Me and my wife, we ran a few rental properties ourselves. And then I got laid off from that job this past October. And then I got on with my podcast partner Izzy, with him and his wife's company, doing contracting with DFACs, doing taking drug samples, urine samples, saliva, hair, doing all that kind of stuff, and that's a pretty cool job. After the government shutdown, that job got really slow and it hasn't really picked back up yet. So I'm kind of stuck in this place where, like, okay, our expenses for our home are starting to go up now. The kids want to do extracurricular activities. My daughter is in band and she's in cross country. My son is in soccer. My daughter, she's my second youngest daughter. Now she's getting into stuff. And so, now I was like, okay, I got to start figuring out some things and get some more income coming in. Like a lot of us were trying to get more income in our households. And so I took a week last week of just seeking God more intently. So what this looked like was cutting off social media, cutting the TV off, fasting, praying, meditation, worship, for a week long, right? And so during that fast, or during that time of seeking God, I was going back through and looking at all these personal assessments and just kind of like, relearning, like, what some of my traits and my personality types are. And so they had a new assessment on here that I didn't know about, that I guess they just put on here, called motivators. And so what motivators is, you take a test, ask you a bunch of questions, and this shows it measures what's called your growth propensity. So in other words, if you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. Now, some of us have heard those terms before. So I guess a growth mindset is somebody who's always thinking positive, who's always thinking about that they're able to grow, that they're able to, you know, conquer any hurdle, start a business, start a ministry. You'll figure it out. We all know people like that. They get on our nerves, right? No, those are great people. And then there's people that struggle in that area. They doubt a lot of negative self-talk. Um, they can always think of a reason why something doesn't work. I'm one of those people. Anytime I'm thinking about a new venture, I can easily come up with like 12 or 15 things that can go wrong. Um, and so after I took this test, I found out that my score leaned more toward the fixed mindset. Now, I'm not going to lie, like, I was very insulted at the results of that test. I didn't really think about myself as having a fixed mindset. But after I thought about it, it makes sense. I am that person that I can always point out like why something's not going to work. When I see people who are able to, like, start a business. So I watched this YouTube video my wife sent me. It's this guy, he's like a serial entrepreneur. millionaire. He has like several businesses that he started. Some of them didn't do well, but a bunch of them made like millions of dollars and still making a bunch of money. So he one time he had this idea. He was in college and he knew of a friend that fixed iPhones. So he just decided, you know what, I'm gonna do that. That looks like good money. I'm just gonna start fixing phones. So he opened up a store and just started fixing phones. He had no idea how to fix a phone. He's never opened a phone before, especially these new phones. They don't even, you gotta like know how to like get those things open. You gotta have tools and whatever. Now, if I was somebody he was talking to, I would have gave him like 20 different reasons why that's not going to work because you don't know what you're doing. So this guy opens the store, a customer will come in and they're like, yeah, I have this problem with my phone. It's doing this, it's doing that. Can you fix it? His answer is, yeah, I can fix it. Give me about 3 hours. So the customer will leave, then he'll go on YouTube and just learn how to do it. When he was telling that story, like I felt like my gut was like, oh, like that's terrible. I couldn't imagine being in that position. Like the what ifs, like what if I can't fix it? They come back and now I look crazy, and all that kind of stuff. So there's some people that just like naturally like do that, or some people who had to develop themselves into becoming that type of person. I'm just not there yet with everything. So, and so here's the crazy thing is, whenever my kids come to me, my daughter, she had this issue where she got accepted into this technology school. It's like this school of Gwinnett School of Math, Science, Technology, um, and it's for like the really smart kids. It's the best school in Georgia. It's like the 13th highest rated school in the nation. And so the school district that we go to is already a really good school. And so she had to make a choice. She had to decide, like, okay, maybe I can go to the school. And so I had to help her through that because when she took her PSAT, which is one of the requirements, you have to score a certain number to get in, and then you have to be a straight A student. And then on top of that, it's a lottery system. So she hit all three of those marks. And when some of her friends scored a higher PSAT score than her, she kind of got that what's that, imposter syndrome. She didn't feel like she was good enough. And so that whole process, we had to help her learn how to weigh two decisions, but learn how to do it in a healthy way and not do it based on fear. And so, we were able to do that. And I was glad that we had to go through that experience because she was able to grow from that. And so my son, the same thing. He's, been feeling really apprehensive about playing these last couple of soccer games for the summer league because just, something happened last season and his confidence got shot. So now I'm trying to help him build back his confidence. And this is why when I took this motivators test and I found out that I leaned toward a fixed mindset, I was really surprised at first because I know what to say. I know how to help my kid. I don't know everything to say because I'm really, if you have kids, you kind of can relate to this. Like when you're trying to help them through something, you're also learning at the same time that you're helping them. You're trying to figure it out in your head so you're trying to figure it out here so it can come out here and make sense to them and make sure it works. And so, so what I did was I took this Bible study that I already was meditating on, and I just took that and I basically gave JoJo some verses. And so this is, I think, will help a lot of us who either we have a child or a friend or a spouse or somebody that may be struggling in a certain area, and just having like negative thoughts, struggling with maybe self worth or just you don't have a good proper view of yourself. And so the first verse I gave Joel was Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. So this is the main verse that really touches on what neuroplasticity is. It's about renewing your mind because everything starts in the mind. This is why the devil wants to attack you in your mind. This is why Jesus told when Jesus was getting ready to go to the cross, and Peter said, by no means, we're not going to let this happen to you. Jesus said, get behind me, Satan. He wasn't talking to Peter. He was talking in Peter's direction, but he was really talking to Satan, because it was Satan that put the thought in Peter's mind. No, because Satan knew, like, if Jesus goes to the cross, it's over. And so the devil is able to sometimes get in our thoughts and whisper things in our mind. We might think that we came up with those thoughts, but sometimes it's really the enemy that does it. But he makes you think it's your thought. That's the trick. And so I gave him a couple of verses. Proverbs 23:7. For as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So you are what you think about. Neuroplasticity, if you keep having a negative thought, that pathway, it gets wider and wider and wider the more you think about it. If you think about a positive thought, that pathway gets wider and wider and wider. And so they say, in the science of neuroplasticity, if you can create a pathway, you can create a pathway by developing a new neural pathway for 40 days. If you can do it for 40 days straight, then you create what's called a mindset. And so that takes you to the fixed mindset or growth mindset. So if you want to develop a growth mindset, then you have to find a thought and you got to go 40 days. It's just repeat it till that pathway gets wider and wider and wider. So I read this book. It might have been like Think and Grow Rich, I think, by Napoleon Hill. There was a chapter in there that talked about, taking these positive affirmations, taping them like on your bathroom mirror or in your car or whatever. And every morning you wake up, you keep repeating those. And so, um, what happened is that's supposed to like help change your mindset. I was doing that for a while, but it really didn't make sense. I'm like, this kind of feels stupid. So I kind of stopped doing it. But now reading this about neuroplasticity and then reading these scriptures in the Bible, it makes sense. As a man think, you become that thing that you think about all the time. So I've told Joel, like, hey, go get your Bible. I bought him a Bible. So I made him look up these scriptures and read them. And the third one I gave him was Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about these things that are excellent and worthy of praise. And so instead of focusing on the bad thoughts, focusing on the fear, because, when I asked him, well, what is it that you're afraid of? He didn't know. He couldn't tell me. That's when I knew that's when I had the idea or the suspicion that this could possibly be a spiritual attack, because there's no rules. Satan has no rules. Like, he will attack your children. He's not waiting until they turn 18. He wants to plant those seeds in him now, even with something that's, maybe in the grand scheme of things, little league soccer is not as important as some of the grown up issues that he's going to have. But if he's able to get him to fear soccer, then he can get him to fear the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. Now you're in your 20s, then now you got a family in your 30s, and you got fear. You learn how to fear all the time, and that can be really destructive. And so now I'm combating that with the word of God. Even gave him a few that I came up with off the top of my head. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Philippians 4:13. And I asked him, like, well, what does that verse mean? He said something along the lines of, like, I can conquer anything. I was like, that's right. And so, but I was like, where does that power come from? I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Like, it comes from God. And so you don't have to depend on your personal strength. God is the one that supplies the strength that we need to be able to do the things that he wants us to do in this life. And then the last one I gave him, it was Hebrews 6:18, which basically just it's the verse that says, God is not a God who can lie. So the verse says, so I asked him, like, what does that mean? Like, it's not that God won't lie. It is that the verse says it is impossible for God to tell a lie. And the reason why I pointed that verse out is because the Bible is the word of God. And so for him to really anchor in his mind that these words are true, he has to know that God, he can't lie. So when the verse says that you can do all things through Christ, that does apply to you. That's not a lie. He can't lie. So um, we talked a little bit more after that and just told him, letting him know like, you know, God allows us to go through hard times because that's what builds perseverance. If I didn't go through the hard times I went through when I was his age, I wouldn't be able to relate to him going through hard times now. And I wouldn't be able to give him advice. I wouldn't be able to, let him know, helping him feel better, to feel more comfort for me knowing that I've been in your shoes. And so that gives me, some, that gives me, what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of gives me like a foot in, with him. Even though he's my son, he doesn't listen to and believe everything I say. Just like I was the same way with my parents, I didn't believe everything they said. But when I can bring myself down to his level, it helps us to kind of gel a little bit more and grow closer. And he listens a little bit better. So, um, and so the funny thing, all this advice that I'm giving my kids is the same issues that I'm currently struggling with. So I'm trying to help them with the same issues because so right now I'll put a plan together um, based on a vision that God gave me the day after I finished my prayer and fasting. So that morning I woke up and this vision popped in my head, and I was like, "Okay, is that from you, God?" And this was something that I've thought about before, and something I really wanted to do. It's like a real lofty goal. I'm not going to share what that is, but um, that vision came back in my head. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. My friend Dwayne gave me a call today. I told him about it. He was like, do it. Just do it. Like, you don't want to live with regret that you didn't try. So, I was sitting here all day, talking to Chat GPT, coming up with a plan of like how to like do this one thing that'll fund this next thing that I want to do. And then that thing to fund the dream that I have. And so I've been talking to Chat GPT all day pretty much, which, man, you know what? Shout out to AI. It's really been great, like being able to get answers really quickly, to have something to help kind of plan and just ask questions. And it's really, so if you don't use Chat GPT or Claude or whatever, like it's not always going to give you the correct answer, so you do have to like double check. But it really is a good resource. And so as I'm coming up with this plan, I'm telling God like, I really am scared, like because again, I can point out a bunch of different reasons why stuff can go wrong through these processes. But I had to take the same advice that I gave my son. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. God is not a God that he will lie. Do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So yeah. So I pray that this message gives you guys encouragement. Um, get in your word, meditate on scripture, think about things that are lovely and honorable and admirable, and true. And, if you got kids, do a little Bible study with them. It doesn't have to take long. Whatever it is that you learn, you can put it into a form that they understand and let them know, like, hey, I'm going through this too. I'm learning as I'm telling you, because they do respect that. They don't expect that you're perfect, so you don't have to pretend to be perfect in front of your kids. So that's what's really helped me. I hope this is encouraging to you guys. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next podcast. Love y'all. Peace.